Hey, you. You're finally awake.
When it comes to Nintendo Entertainment System, few companies left a mark quite like Konami. Throughout the late 80s and early 90s, Konami was a powerhouse of creativity, consistently delivering games that pushed the limits of the hardware while setting new standards for gameplay, music and visual design. The company had a knack for taking simple concepts and refining them into unforgettable experiences, whether through tight controls, striking 8-bit graphics or soundtracks that could lodge themselves in your brain for decades. From high-octane action platformers to intense shooters and addictive sports titles, Konami's NES output showcased both variety and quality in equal measure. They weren't just releasing games, they were crafting instant classics that would go on to define the era. Even their licensed titles, which could have been quick cash grabs in lesser hands, often became beloved fan favourites thanks to the studio's dedication to polished innovation. Simply put, if you saw that red and white Konami logo on the NES cartridge, you know you were in for something special. So today I'm going to be looking at 7 games that Konami put out for the NES that I just think are really good. And as always, if you really think I deserve it, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're really on the way to try and make this the best retro show I can be. If you want to hear more of me, Retro Wars is also a weekly podcast where this week we're looking at Command & Conquer Red Alert for the PC. And we've also got a $1 a month Patreon where you can join the Smut Squad, get involved with the podcast and get your own additional show. Right, let's get into it, shall we? 7 games I think are really good that Konami made for the NES. Castlevania. Castlevania released for the NES in 1986 and is one of the most iconic action platformers of the 8-bit era and a game that established the foundations of Konami's most enduring franchises. Taking heavy inspiration from classic horror films, it casts players as vampire hunter Simon Belmont, who wields the legendary vampire killer whip in a quest to destroy Count Dracula. The story is simple but effective. Dracula has risen from the grave to terrorise Transylvania, and Simon must venture into the vampire lord's sprawling castle to defeat him and restore peace. From the very first scene, Castlevania oozes atmosphere. The opening gates lead into a dark, foreboding castle filled with flickering torches, ominous stonework, and a sense that danger lurks around every corner. The game is divided into 6 distinct stages, each broken into multiple sections, with the journey taking Simon through courtyards, dungeons, clock towers, and finally into Dracula's throne room. Each level is thematically designed, and every area introduces new hazards and enemy types, keeping the experience fresh despite the game's linear structure. Gameplay is straightforward but punishing. Simon moves with deliberate, methodical pacing. Once you commit to a jump, there's no turning back. This rigidity, while sometimes frustrating to newcomers, is part of the game's identity, demanding careful timing and precision. The whip is Simon's primary weapon, and it can be upgraded to increase its reach and power. Secondary weapons such as the throwing knife, holy water, boomerang cross, axe and stopwatch add variety and strategic options, each consuming hearts collected from candles and enemies. Knowing which sub-weapon to bring into a boss fight, just the stopwatch, can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Enemy placement is intentionally devious. Zombies, bats and skeletons might be simple threats, but far more dangerous foes like hunchbacks that leap erratically or Medusa heads that follow a relentless wave pattern are placed to punish careless movements. Environmental hazards such as collapsing platforms and moving staircases often combine with enemy attacks to create tense, memorable moments. The game never feels random, instead it challenges the player to learn patterns and approach each encounter with caution. Visually, Castlevania was a standout title for its time. The backgrounds are richly detailed with gothic architecture and anonymous set pieces, lending the castle a genuine sense of place. The sprite work is sharp with distinct enemy designs that reference classic movie monsters, werewolves, mummies and Frankenstein's monster all make appearances. The visual style captures a timeless horror aesthetic and still resonates with players today. The soundtrack is equally legendary, and the composers crafted a score that perfectly complements the game's tense yet adventurous tone. Tracks like Vampire Killer, Wicked Child and Walking on the Edge are instantly recognisable and remain staples in the later Castlevania titles. The music drives the pace of the action and gives each stage its own distinct energy, making it one of the most memorable soundtracks of the NES era and just in gaming. Boss battles are also a major highlight. Each stage ends with a confrontation against a formidable foe, often inspired by famous monsters. They require pattern recognition, quick reflexes and the right use of sub-weapons. The final showdown with Dracula is equally memorable. His first form involves teleporting around the room and launching fireballs, but once defeated he transforms into a massive beast for a tense final phase. This 2-stage battle set the precedent for epic Castlevania finales in later games. The difficulty is high but rewarding. New players often struggle with the game's precise controls and punishing enemy placements, but perseverance is rewarded with the satisfaction of mastery. There's no hand-holding. Success comes from learning the castle's layouts, anticipating traps, and managing sub-weapon resources wisely. The password system, absent in the first game, means it must be completed in one sitting, adding to the pressure and intensity. Castlevania was widely praised upon release for its atmosphere, graphics, and challenging but fair gameplay. It became a commercial success and cemented itself as one of Konami's flagship titles. The game's influence on the action platform genre is immense, inspiring sequels, spin-offs, and even the Metroidvania style of exploration-based platformers that would evolve in later entries. Even decades later, Castlevania remains a thrilling and tightly designed experience. It's a perfect blend of classic horror themes, challenging gameplay, and iconic presentation. For NES fans, it's not just an important piece of gaming history, it's a benchmark in 8-bit design and the cornerstone of one of gaming's greatest series. Bucky O'Hare. Bucky O'Hare released for the NES in 1992 by Konami and is often considered one of the most polished and underappreciated action platformers on the system. Based on the short-lived and absolutely goated animated TV series and comic book of the same name, the game follows the adventures of Bucky, a green anthropomorphic hare who captains a spaceship in the war against the evil Toad Empire. While the show itself never reached the fame of the Ninja Turtles or other early 90s cartoons, although it was goated, the NES game became a cult favourite thanks to its colourful visuals, inventive level design, and tight controls. The story begins when Bucky's crew is captured by the Toad Empire and imprisoned across different planets. These planets each have distinct environments: ice worlds, lava-filled caverns, industrial complexes, and more. Bucky's mission is to rescue his friends: Jenny the telepathic cat, Deadeye Duck the gun-toting marksman, Blinky the one-eyed android, and Willy the muscle-bound baboon. Well, it was meant to be Bruiser, but it became Willy, so it's Willy, this human kid who somehow got trapped in there and his parents don't really give a shit about him. Honestly, terrible parenting if you ask me. Before taking the fight directly to the Toads. While the narrative's simple, the game's personality shines through its characters and presentation, perfectly capturing the charm of its source material. One of the most interesting aspects of Bucky O'Hare is its structure. The first half of the game allows you to tackle the 4 rescue missions in any order, much like Mega Man. Each time you save a crewmate, they become playable, and you can switch between them at any time with the press of a button. Each character has unique abilities. Bucky can jump higher than most, Jenny can fire a psychic charge blast, Deadeye can shoot in multiple directions, Blinky can hover for short distances, and Willy has a gun, because why not Willy shoot things out the end of things? Shut up, I'm allowing that joke. This character swapping mechanic gives the gameplay a sense of strategic layer, as certain stages of enemies are easier to handle with the right crew member. The level design is a real highlight. Each planet has its own theme and set of mechanics, from slippery ice platforms to modern lava chasers, and sections where you're being crushed by giant machinery. Konami's designers constantly throw new ideas at the player, often blending platforming with light puzzle solving and reflex-based challenges. After rescuing all 4 crew members, the game ramps up the difficulty in the final stages, combining hazards and enemy types in ways that test your mastery of every skill you've learned. Bucky O'Hare's visuals are some of the most impressive on the NES. Sprites are large and full of personality, with each character and enemy animated smoothly. The backgrounds are vibrant and packed with detail, showcasing a level of polish that puts it on par with other late-era NES games like Kirby's Adventure or Batman Return of the Joker. The game's use of colour is striking, giving each planet its own distinctive look without losing the cartoon-like tone. The soundtrack is equally impressive. The music perfectly matches the high-energy sci-fi action with upbeat melodies that change to more intense themes during boss battles. Sound effects are punchy and satisfying, from the crack of Deadeye's blaster to the hum of Jenny's psychic shots. The combination of visuals and audio creates an immersive and fast-paced atmosphere. Boss battles in Bucky O'Hare are varied and memorable, often featuring large screen-filling enemies that require pattern recognition and smart use of your crew's abilities. Some battles are straightforward shootouts, while others mix in environmental hazards forcing you to think on your feet. These encounters are challenging but rarely feel unfair, and the game generously provides checkpoints to reduce frustration. Despite being a late NES release, Bucky O'Hare didn't receive the attention it deserved at the time, partly because the cartoon it was based on had already faded from public view. However, those who discovered it praised its slick gameplay, variety, and high production values. Over time, it's gained a reputation as one of the console's hidden treasures, often recommended to fans of run-and-gun platformers. In retrospect, Bucky O'Hare stands as proof of Konami's mastery of the NES hardware. It combines the non-linear stage selection of Mega Man, the character variety of Ninja Turtles, and the fast-paced action of Contra into one cohesive package. For NES collectors and retro gaming fans, it's not just a great licensed game, it's one of the best action platformers the console has to offer, and a shining example of how a little-known cartoon could still inspire a truly great video game. Tiny Toons. Tiny Toons Adventures, released for the NES in 1991, is a vibrant and charming platformer based on the popular animated show of the same name. Arriving during the peak of the show's success, the game follows the misadventures of the students of the Acton University, blending the slapstick humour of classic Looney Tunes with a colourful, fast-paced gameplay style. While many licensed games of the time were rushed or shallow, Konami delivered a title that only captured the spirit of the cartoon, but also stood on its own as a quality platformer. The story is light-hearted and perfectly suited to the source material. Montana Max, the spoilt rich kid and frequent troublemaker from the show, has kidnapped Babs Bunny, and it's up to Buster Bunny to rescue her. The game sends you through 6 themed worlds, ranging from grassy fields to icy mountains, haunted houses, and outer space, each broken into multiple stages. While the plot is simple, the humour and personality of the show shine through in the enemies, environments and boss encounters. One of the Tiny Toons Adventure's most enjoyable features is its character selection mechanic. At the start of each stage, you choose Buster as your main character and one of the 3 friends, Plucky Duck, Dizzy Devil or Furball the Cat, as you alternate. Each of the characters has unique abilities. Plucky can glide through the air, Dizzy can spin into enemies and break certain obstacles, and Furball can cling to walls to reach otherwise inaccessible areas. You can switch between characters mid-level by collecting a special balloon item, adding variety and strategy to each stage. The gameplay is a classic NES platforming at its finest. Tight controls, responsive jumping, and a balance between enemy encounters and environmental hazards. Stages are designed with multiple routes and secrets, encouraging replayability and experimentation with different character abilities. While Buster's speed and agility make him a solid all-rounder, using the right partner for the right stage often makes progression easier and more fun. Visually, Tiny Toons Adventure is one of the most colourful and expressive NES titles. Character sprites are large and well animated, perfectly resembling their cartoon counterparts. Enemies are equally expressive, often reacting in humorous ways when defeated. Each world has a distinct visual theme, with detailed backgrounds that bring the whimsical Acme Acres setting to life. Whether you're hopping across snowy peaks or dodging ghosts in a haunted house, the graphics maintain a crisp, polished look. The soundtrack captures the cheerful energy of the show. The iconic Tiny Toons theme song greets players on the title screen, while each stage has its own upbeat tune that matches the mood of the environment. Sound effects are snappy and satisfying, from the pop of collecting carrots to the comedic boing of bouncing on enemies. Boss fights are another highlight, featuring familiar characters from the cartoon like Elmira Duff, Roderick Rat, and the final showdown Montana himself. These battles are straightforward but fun, often requiring you to recognise patterns and make use of your movement skills. The difficulty curve is well judged. Early stages are forgiving, while later ones introduce trickier jumps, more enemies, and environmental hazards like collapsing platforms and slippery ice. One standout feature is the way game uses carrots as a form of currency. Collecting 30 carrots allows you to summon Hampton J. Pig, who grants you an extra life. This adds incentive to explore stages thoroughly and rewards careful play. While the game isn't brutally difficult by NES standards, it still offers enough challenge to keep players engaged without becoming frustrated. Tiny Toons Adventure was well received upon release, praised for its faithful adaptation of the cartoon's charm, solid gameplay and high production values. It sold well enough to inspire a Game Boy port and even a sequel on the NES, Tiny Toons Adventures 2 Trouble in Wacky Land, which took a different approach to the formula. Today, Tiny Toons Adventures remains a standout licensed title on the NES, a game that didn't just rely on the brand recognition, but was built with care and attention to detail. It's a joyful mix of colourful graphics, catchy music and tight gameplay, making it one of the better platformers of its time and a must-play for fans of both Konami's golden era and the beloved animated series. Blades of Steel. Blades of Steel released for the NES in 1988 and is one of the most beloved sports games on the console, and remains a classic example of how to make a fast-paced arcade-style hockey game that's accessible to everyone. Unlike many sports titles of its time, Blades of Steel prioritized speed, excitement, and fun over strict simulation, making it as appealing to casual players as it was to hockey fans. It wasn't about official teams or complex playbooks, it was about quick action, smooth gameplay, and a touch of Konami charm. The game keeps things straightforward. 2 teams face off in a standard hockey match, aiming to score more goals than the opponent by the end of 3 periods. While there are no licensed teams or real-life player rosters, each team is represented by a city name, giving players the freedom to choose based on their preference rather than the stats. The simplicity of the setup allows players to jump straight into the action without wading through menus or learning complicated rules. Gameplay in Blades of Steel is surprisingly fluid for the NES sports title. Skating is smooth and responsive, with players able to pass, shoot, and check with ease. The game's passing system is one of the best features, as the puck automatically locks onto a teammate when you pass, allowing for a quick and precise playmaking. Shooting is equally intuitive. You can take quick wrist shots for speed, or wind up for more powerful slap shots, each with its own risk and reward. The balance between offense and defense keeps matches exciting from start to finish. Of course, Blades of Steel is perhaps most famous for its fighting mechanic. When 2 players bump into each other repeatedly, they drop their sticks and gloves, leading to a full-on fist fight. These fights are a simple one-on-one brawls, but winning them gives your team a huge advantage as the loser is sent to the penalty box, creating a temporary power play for the opponents. Doesn't really seem fair, but yeah, oh well. This feature was revolutionary at the time and added a layer of personality and unpredictability that made the game stand out among other sports titles. Visually, Blades of Steel is clean and functional, with large, easily distinguishable sprites of players and a well-defined ice rink that scrolls smoothly during gameplay. Konami also introduced some neat touches, like animated crowds and a scoreboard between periods. One of the game's most memorable visual moments happens during intermissions, where a short, pixelated minigame, often a quick Gradius-style shooting segment, plays on the Jumbotron. These little extras contribute to the game's charm, make it feel alive. From the digitalized voice announcing Blades of Steel at the start, to the sharp whistles of the referees, to the thud of checks and slap shots, the game creates an immersive hockey atmosphere. The crowd noise changes dynamically depending on the action, and whilst the background music is sparse during gameplay, it kicks in during menus and intermissions to keep the energy high. Matches are fast and intense, with the AI putting up a solid fight even on lower difficulty settings. For 2 players, the game becomes even more competitive and fun, with matches often turning into a mix of skillful passing, opportunistic scoring, and playful brawling. The short match lengths make it perfect for quick sessions, but the addictive nature of the gameplay makes it easy to just have one more round. Blades of Steel received strong reviews upon release, with critics praising its smooth controls, fast action, and unique fighting feature. It became a go-to multiplayer game on the NES and is still remembered fondly by retro gaming fans today. While later hockey games would introduce more realism and licensed teams, Blades of Steel's arcade-style approach gave it a timeless quality that keeps it enjoyable decades later. In retrospect, Blades of Steel is more than just a sports game, it's a snapshot of Konami at the creative peak on the NES. With its tight controls, exciting gameplay, and just the right amount of over-the-top fun, it stands as one of the best sports titles of the era. Whether you're a hockey fan or just looking for a competitive 2-player game, Blades of Steel still delivers the thrill of the rink in pure 8-bit style. Contra. Contra released for the NES in 1988 and is one of the most celebrated run-and-gun shooters of the 8-bit era, and a game that cemented itself as a cornerstone of classic action gaming. Loosely based on the arcade version of the same name, the NES port not only preserved the fast-paced, explosive gameplay of the original, but also added refinements that made it one of the most beloved titles on the system. It's the kind of game that hooked players instantly with its tight controls, relentless action, and cooperative gameplay, ensuring its place in NES history. The premise is straightforward but perfectly suited to the era's action movie-inspired tone. Players control one of 2 elite commandos, Billy Mad Dog Riser or Lance Scorpion Bean, tasked with infiltrating the jungles, bases, and alien-infested lairs of the Red Falcon organization, an enemy force threatening world domination. The game wears its influence on its sleeve, borrowing visual and thematic cues from popular 80s films like Predator and Aliens. While the story is minimal, the presentation is all about delivering an over-the-top military sci-fi adventure. Contra's gameplay is where it truly shines. The game combines side-scrolling action with vertical climbing and even pseudo-3D base stages where players advance towards the screen. Each stage is packed with enemies, turrets, and environmental hazards requiring constant movement and precise shooting. The variety in stage design keeps the pacing fresh, with jungle treks, snowfield assaults, enemy strongholds, and the iconic alien lair that serves as the final battleground. One of the most memorable aspects of Contra is its weapon system. Players start with a basic rifle, but can grab power-ups from flying capsules to upgrade their arsenal. The spread gun is easily the fan favourite, offering a wide cone of fire that makes the crowd control much easier. Other weapons like the machine gun, laser, and fire gun each have their uses, though experienced players often stick to the spread gun whenever possible. Smart weapon choice and positioning are crucial to surviving the game's intense enemy waves. Difficulty is a defining characteristic of Contra. The game is notoriously challenging, with a single hit resulting in instant death. Enemy bullets, environmental hazards, and tricky platforming segments combine to keep players constantly on edge. However, the controls are so responsive and precise that success always feels possible with practice. The famous Konami code of up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, start become legendary thanks to Contra, granting 30 lives and allowing less experienced players a fighting chance to see the end credits, like me. The 2-player cooperative mode elevates Contra from a great game to a classic. Playing with a friend changes the dynamic entirely, as teamwork becomes essential for survival. Coordinating jumps, splitting enemy targets, and covering each other's blind spots create a frantic but exhilarating experience. Of course, co-op can cause chaos, with one player's mistakes sometimes leading to the other's demise, but that's part of the fun. Visually, Contra is among the NES's best-looking action titles. The sprite work is clean, with smooth animations for both player characters and enemies. Boss designs are a particular highlight, ranging from massive mechanical turrets to grotesque alien creatures. The environments are varied and memorable, with each level offering a distinct visual style that reflects the escalating conflict, from grounded military bases to surreal alien landscapes. The soundtrack is equally memorable. The driving, energetic music perfectly matches the game's pace, pushing players forward with adrenaline-pumping beats. Sound effects are crisp and impactful, from the sharp crack of gunfire to the explosive roar of bosses going down. Together, the visuals and audio create a high-intensity atmosphere that rarely lets up. Upon release, Contra was praised for its fast action, variety, and cooperative gameplay. It became a huge hit both in arcades and on the NES, with the home version in particular enjoying a long life as a multiplayer favourite. The game's success spawned numerous sequels and spin-offs, but for many fans, the NES Contra remains the definitive experience. Today, Contra is remembered not just as a classic NES game, but as one of the greatest run-and-gun shooters ever made. Its combination of responsive controls, challenging gameplay, and memorable design ensures it remains as engaging now as it was in the late 80s. Whether you played it solo with a friend, Contra delivers pure, unfiltered action in a way few games can match, making it a true masterpiece of the NES library. TMNT 3: The Manhattan Project. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 The Manhattan Project, released for the NES in 1991, is often regarded as one of the best beat-em-ups on the console and a fitting farewell to the Turtles NES trilogy. Following the huge success of the arcade-inspired TMNT 2, the arcade game, this third entry was built from the ground up from the NES rather than being a direct port, allowing Konami to tailor the gameplay, pacing and visuals spectacularly to the hardware. The result was a game that combined the cooperative fun of its predecessor with new moves, more varied stages and a smoother overall appearance. The story is classic Turtle simplicity, matching the tone of the animated series. While vacationing on a beach in Florida, the heroes in Half-Shell, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael, learn that Shredder has once again kidnapped April O'Neil, because that's what you need to do in these matters. To make things worse, he uses his latest device to lift the entire island of Manhattan into the sky, holding the city hostage. The Turtles must fight their way from the beaches of Florida all the way back to New York to rescue April and stop Shredder's plan. It's pure Saturday morning cartoon fare, and it sets the stage for non-stop action. Gameplay follows the familiar side-scrolling beat-em-up format, with players moving through stages and defeating waves of foot soldiers, mutants, and mechanical enemies. Each turtle has their own weapon range and attack speed, giving players a reason to pick their favourites. Leonardo's balanced sword, Michelangelo's fast nunchucks, Donatello's staff, and Raphael's quick but short-range size all offer distinct gameplay. Importantly, Konami added a special attack unique to each turtle, performed with a simple button combination allowing for flashy crowd control, though at the cost of a slither of health. Stage variety is one of the Manhattan Project's biggest strengths. Across 8 lengthy levels, players brawled through beaches, offshore oil rigs, city rooftops, sewers, subways, and high-tech halls of the Technodrome. Each environment is filled with hazards from collapsing platforms to conveyor belts, adding a layer of environmental awareness to the combat. The transitions between settings are smooth and creative, often giving the sense of a continuous journey rather than disjointed levels. Enemy variety is also another highlight. While foot soldiers make up the bulk of opposition, they come in different colours with different attack patterns. Some wield weapons like swords, whips, or boomerangs, while others charge with shields or attack from a distance. Classic TMNT villains like Bebop, Rocksteady, Leatherhead, and Krang make memorable appearances as bosses, each with their own unique attack patterns that require quick reflexes and smart positioning to overcome. Visually, the game is one of the NES's better-looking beat-em-ups. The character sprites are large, colourful, and well-animated, closely matching the look of the cartoon. Backgrounds are detailed and varied with subtle touches like moving waves, scrolling cityscapes, and flashing lights in the Technodrome adding atmosphere. The NES hardware is pushed impressively far here, with minimal flicker or slowdown even when the screen is packed with enemies. The soundtrack, composed by Konami's in-house team, is upbeat and action-packed, perfectly matching the game's tone. The music captures the energy of the Turtles' adventures with catchy stage themes and intense boss fights. Sound effects are crisp and satisfying, from the thwack of weapons hitting enemies to the iconic Cowabunga voice clip at the start of each level. Difficulty is balanced well, offering a fair challenge both for solo players and in 2-player co-op. Enemies can be relentless and boss fights require patience and pattern recognition, but the responsive controls make combat satisfying and skill-based. The game includes unlimited continues, which helps keep frustration to a minimum, though reaching the end still requires focus and patience. Critics and fans praised the Manhattan Project upon release for its improved gameplay, fun cooperative mode, and variety in stages and enemies. While it didn't have the immediate name recognition of its arcade predecessor, many consider it the most refined of the NES trilogy thanks to its custom-built design for the console. It stands as one of the last great NES action games before the 16-bit era fully took over. Today, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 The Manhattan Project remains a must-play for retro gaming fans, especially those who enjoy classic beat-em-ups. It's a shining example of Konami's skill in squeezing the most out of the NES hardware, delivering a game that's colourful, action-packed, and endlessly fun with a friend. Whether you're a TMNT superfan or just someone who's looking for a tight, well-made 8-bit brawler, this is one pure turtle power from start to finish. And finally, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse released for the NES in 1990 and is often regarded as one of the finest titles in the Castlevania series and a true technical marvel for the system. Serving as a prequel to the original Castlevania, the game takes players back to 1476, where they step in the boots of the drunkard Trevor Belmont, although he's probably not a drunkard in the game, but he was, we all know, in the TV series, an ancestor of Simon Belmont. Dracula has risen to threaten Europe once again, and it's up to Trevor, armed with a legendary vampire killer whip, to put an end to the vampire lord's reign of terror. From the start, Castlevania 3 sets itself apart from its predecessors with a branching path system. Players can choose different routes throughout the game, which affects not only the order of stages, but also which allies Trevor can recruit along the way. This choice adds a level of replay value not seen in the earlier games, making it one of the most versatile NES action games. The variety in stages and multiple endings encourages experimentation, ensuring no 2 playthroughs have to be exactly the same. One of the biggest draws of the game is the introduction of 3 additional playable characters. Cypher Belnades, a sorceress with devastating magic spells, Grant Dynasty, a nimble pirate who can cling to walls and ceilings, and Alucard, Dracula's half-human, half-vampire son who can transform into a bat to fly over obstacles. Each character plays dramatically different from Trevor, providing unique strengths and weaknesses that can make certain stages easier or harder depending on your choice. Switching between them on the fly adds strategic depth, and choosing the right ally for the right situation is key to success. Gameplay-wise, Castlevania 3 returns to the more methodical, deliberate combat of the original, ditching the more arcade-like feel of Castlevania 2. The whip remains Trevor's primary weapon, complemented by sub-weapons like holy water, axes, and the boomerang-like cross. The controls are tight but demand precision, rewarding careful play and punishing recklessness. Enemies are placed in ways that force the player to think ahead, and hazards like moving platforms, collapsing stairs, and Medusa heads keep the tension high. Visually, the game pushes the NES to its limit. Konami's team crafted beautifully detailed backgrounds, from eerie forests to haunted ships and clock towers. Each stage is packed with gothic atmosphere and sprite work is sharp and expressive. The use of colour is particularly striking, giving environments a moody, otherworldly tone. In Japan, the game benefited from the extra sound channels of the Famicom's VRC6 chip, producing richer music, but even in the NES version, the soundtrack is one of the most celebrated in the series. Tracks like Beginning and Aquarius are now iconic, blending energy, tension, and gothic flair. The difficulty is famously high, but it's also fairer than some NES games of the era. While enemies can be brutal and platforming segments unforgiving, the game rewards practice and memorization. Boss fights are varied and memorable, from hulking monsters to elaborate multi-stage encounters. The branching paths also allow players to tackle levels in different orders, meaning if one route is too punishing, another might offer a more manageable challenge. Castlevania 3 was well received upon release, earning praise for its graphics, music, and innovative gameplay. Many critics and fans still cite it as a pinnacle of the NES trilogy, offering the perfect blend of challenge, atmosphere, and replay value. It laid the groundwork for future games in the series, particularly the use of multiple characters, a concept that would reappear in later games like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, because we got secret characters at the end of it. Its legacy is immense. It remains a must-play for NES fans and has been re-released on numerous platforms, including the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. Castlevania 3 stands as proof of how far developers could push the NES hardware, delivering an experience that feels epic in scope while retaining the tight, deliberate gameplay that defines the series. For fans of classic action platformers, it's not just a good game, it's one of the NES's crown jewels. And that's it, 7 great Konami games. What do you think about this list? Do you think they're ones I need to mention? And if so, put it in the comments, we can always do a round 2. And as always, if you think I deserve it, please hit that like and subscribe button, it really helps the channel grow. Until then, I'll see you all again in 3 days for another video. My name's been Danny. Chase your dreams. Bye bye.